Welcome to the She Plays on Women's Football podcast. I'm your host, Harry Chan. This week, I talk with Aston Villa defender Natalie Haigh about her journey to the WSL, the highs and the many lows of her career, before moving on and talking about some banana bread disasters and avoiding cameras.
Would I make them banana bread? I'm going to say no, because the second time I tried to make it during lockdown, it was an absolute disaster. I wouldn't have even used it as a doorstop, let alone to feed to people that were coming to my house.
But first, some news from this week. Arsenal and Netherlands forward Vivianne Miedema has been named the Football Writers Association Women's Footballer of the Year. Now the 23-year-old, who missed out on an award last season by one single vote, beat Chelsea's Bethany England also by one vote to win this year. Miedema was the Women's Super League's top scorer in 2019-20 with 16 goals. She is also her country's leading goal scorer and helped the Netherlands reach last year's World Cup final. We talked about her in one of our previous episodes, so you can feel free to review that again. Meanwhile, Real Madrid have finally launched their own women's team, a decision hailed as, quote, a huge positive, that the Los Blancos completed a €300,000 buyout of Madrid-based club Tacon, which has now been officially renamed Real Madrid Femenino. In a statement, Real said that it wanted to, quote, contribute to the sport's development and growth. England international Chloe Kelly has signed a new 2-year contract with Manchester City after it was announced in June that she had turned down a new deal with former club Everton. Kelly says the prospect of playing Champions League football was a massive part of her decision to join Manchester City. The forward scored 9 goals in the WSL season last year before it ended and was part of the England squad that competed in the She Believes Cup. Philanthropist James Anderson will pay all travel and COVID-19 testing costs to enable Glasgow City women to play the Champions League quarter-final. Now Glasgow City face Wolfsburg on the 21st of August in San Sebastian, Spain, where a 10-day tournament concludes the competition. Anderson's donation is on top of the £250 he has already given to the Scottish women's game and £3 million to the men's SPFL this summer. West Ham captain Gilly Flaherty is among 5 West Ham players to sign new contracts with the WSL club. The 28-year-old defender, forwards Alicia Lehmann and Adriana Leon will remain with the Hammers as well until 2022, as well as South Korean midfielder Cho So-hyun. France midfielder Kenya Daly, meanwhile, has also signed a new 1-year deal. Arsenal women have made experienced Australian defender Steph Catley their first summer signing. The 26-year-old fullback joins the Gunners from Melbourne Victory and has won 82 caps for the Matildas since her international debut, aged 18. Catley has also spent time in the United States, playing for Portland Thorns and Orlando Pride. Arsenal have also signed Switzerland midfielder Madeline Gutt from Grasshopper Club Zurich. The 19-year-old made her senior debut for the Swiss club, aged just 15, and has won 3 league and cup titles in her homeland. She has also won 8 international caps alongside new Arsenal teammate Leah Walty. Newly promoted Aston Villa women have signed Scotland midfielder Chloe Arthur from local rivals Birmingham City. The 25-year-old is Villa's first new signing since they won promotion to the WSL. Arthur was also a member of Scotland's squad at 2019's World Cup. Aston Villa women have also signed veteran England international Anita Asante. The 35-year-old, who can play in defence or midfield, was in the Great Britain squad at London back in 2012 and left champions Chelsea last month. Manchester City and England defender Gemma Bonner has signed a 2-year extension which keeps her at the WSL club until 2022. The 28-year-old joined from Liverpool in 2018 and helped City win the FA Cup and Continental Cup in her first year. Australia forward Hayley Raso has signed an extended contract with Everton women, keeping her at the WSL club until 2021. The 25-year-old joined from Brisbane Roar in January, but has yet to play because of injury, and the season ending early after the coronavirus outbreak. Midfielder Amy Palmer has rejoined Bristol City Women on a 2-year deal. She has spent the past 2 seasons at Manchester United Women, which include a loan spell at Sheffield United. Wales winger Megan Wynne has also signed for Bristol City on a 1-year contract. The 27-year-old spent last season on loan with the Robins from Tottenham. Our guest on this show captained Yeovil Town before joining Aston Villa last season. She has since started every single game and kept an undefeated record in the Championship, gaining promotion to the WSL next season. Please welcome Aston Villa defender Natalie Haigh. Hello Natalie, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm very well, thank you.
First of all, I want to start by congratulating you for your promotion to the WSL.
Thank you.
Because you joined last year in Aston Villa, and you started every single game. There's an undefeated record, and then you're now promoted. How does all that feel for you?
It's an interesting one. It's been a bit of a roller coaster year in a very good way. I think I was lucky that I was given a chance by Gemma, the manager, and essentially playing in a very good team and in a very difficult league. I think there was lots of teams that could have challenged for the top spot, and there'll be many teams next year that do the same. But yeah, really enjoyed the year, and obviously great to get so many minutes in claret and blue.
It's really a roller coaster ride for you, because now you recovered, I know, from a back injury a few years back before, and now you're going to play in the WSL next season. Did you ever imagine this path before?
I've always dreamed it. It's kind of what I've always wanted. I think, when any player suffers an injury, there's lots of questions around, when am I going to come back? Can I come back? If I do come back, will I be good enough? Will I be fit enough? Because essentially the game moves on quickly. And I think that's shown in the way that women's football in this country has progressed over the last few years. So, yeah, it seems a long time ago now. And actually after my injury, I played in the WSL Spring Series when it kind of first came around for Yeovil. But I wasn't ready and I wasn't good enough. And after that season, I left the club, which was probably the right thing. But yeah, it's crazy to think that was almost 4 or 5 years ago now. And next season, I'm looking at a season in the WSL, and I think it's an interesting one. I think I was as surprised as everybody when I was offered a contract with the club, but hopefully it's a sign that hard work and patience and determination pays off eventually.
Definitely, I think we can all agree on that. So I want to talk a bit more about the time when you were injured, because you were out for 15 months, which is like very, very long time for any athlete. How did you handle that challenge?
If I'm being honest, initially I didn't handle it very well. When I initially got my results from the hospital, I asked the question if I would ever be able to play, not professional football, because I'd never been a full professional, but essentially if I could go back and play to the level that I had been. And I guess it's difficult for doctors to say yes or no because they don't know everything, but the answer was kind of like, you'll probably be able to play, but probably not at a high level or not at the level that you have been. So I remember when I kind of heard that, I broke down a little bit and I wasn't really sure because football's kind of been my life, to be honest. And I was just a bit, like I say, unsure of what was next and where I was going to go. So yeah, initially I didn't take it very well, and it took me, a good kind of 5 to 6 months to come to terms with it. And actually just kind of understand more about it and how I could manage it. And essentially, I just ended up back in the gym and fell in love with the gym a little bit, and started to just get strong and felt better in myself. And essentially, just kind of went from there, really.
I want to ask a bit about, you said that you started going back to the gym 5 or 6 months after your injury. Would you say there was one thing or one person who
show you the courage, like gave you the courage to go back to there?
Yeah, it's a difficult one because I kind of separated myself from football at that point. I thought I was done. So essentially my teammates moved on, my coaches moved on, and that's how sport goes. But I think I was lucky enough to work in a university in a sports department where there were lots of fit people, lots of driven people, lots of sports people. So essentially just kind of bounced off them really, and like I said, got back into the gym and was lucky enough to be introduced to a strength and conditioning coach called Graham, who very kindly took me under his wing and just got me back strong and just confident again, I guess.
Was there anything that you learned from captaining side pretty early on in your career?
Yeah, so I only actually captained Yeovil before my injury in the WSL2. But I had previously been a captain at other clubs that I'd played at a lower level. And I think, one of the biggest things you learn when you're given that responsibility is just, I guess, how to manage yourself better, because you're constantly on a pedestal where, people are looking up to you or people are looking to you for the answers. And do you know what? That year I played in a very talented team and I had players like Corinne Yorston, who was obviously an ex-England international, played in the Champions League for Bristol, etc. And I was captain of a team that she was in, and I couldn't believe it, to be honest. So yeah, I think you just kind of have to suck things up a little bit, and you have to be that leader, you have to be that communicator, you have to almost be that level head and somebody that people can come to. And I think it does bring pressure, but it's a good kind of pressure. I felt like my performances got better because there was that expectation that I was leading by example. So yeah, I'd say that was the biggest thing, just managing yourself and managing your emotions and trying to step up to the plate really and be that kind of sounding board for other players and, like I said, somebody to look up to.
You mentioned a bit earlier that you stopped playing a bit after your injury, but after also joining Coventry. Now, was it difficult to rediscover really the fun in playing football, playing the sports?
Yeah, I think after my injury, it definitely was. It was a strange feeling to eventually go back to playing. And after the spring series, because like I said, I then left Yeovil or was released, I actually ended up playing rugby for a bit, just as a change, because I'd kind of just lost my way a little bit with football. So I ended up just playing a different sport, loved it, had a really good time. And then I guess with Coventry, it was a difficult one because during my second season there, I had some personal issues that meant I couldn't play. I'd come back from Denmark and my international clearance didn't go through for a while. So my season was very up and down anyway. And I just got to a point where I was juggling lots of things away from the pitch in regards to my career and trying to progress as a coach and manager of a football academy and a coach mentor for the FA. And it just got to a point where I didn't feel like I was giving everything I could to the club and I didn't feel like the club deserved that or the players that were there. And I just didn't think it was a good match anymore. And as you've probably seen, they went on and got promoted that season. So it was maybe a good move all round for the club. But yeah, I just reached a point where I wasn't really sure where I was going with my career or with football. And like I said, I just couldn't give to Coventry what they needed or what I felt I should be given.
Because when we fast forward to now, obviously a lot of things are very amazing at your club at Aston Villa, and not just being in WSL, but just the sheer amount of support from the men's team, the banner in the Premier League, congratulating your team on being promoted, which is a start. It's not everything, but it's a good start. How do you think the amount of support from the men's team help or maybe even influence you as a player in the women's team?
Yeah, I think it's huge. I remember when I was younger, when I was 16, and I was playing for Leeds United back then, and we were supported by the men's team. And as soon as they got kind of relegated, it was a different story. But things were very different back then. And I think the way that women's football is developed now, it's great to see so many big clubs supporting their women and getting women's teams set up, girls' teams set up, etc. and I cannot express how much Aston Villa Football Club has supported us and has been there for us, has provided for us, has given us opportunities as both individuals and as a team to push ourselves and progress. And yeah, I think everyone in the team was delighted to see that banner up at Villa Park, and it's kind of a great statement for us. It honestly means the world to us to see that level of support, and I think it's one of the only ways that maybe women's football at professional level can survive over the next few years, at least until it becomes self-sustainable. And like I said, Real Madrid have just set up a women's team. Man United obviously didn't have one for a while, and they came out of the blue, and look where they are now. They're doing fantastically well. So yeah, like I said, I cannot express the amount of support that Aston Villa Football Club has shown us, and it does help. And you can see how women's football is progressing because of that help from their male counterparts.
I see. Because not only is, of course, being promoted is amazing, but also when we look at your manager, Gemma Davies, she's a very young manager as well. So does it feel different to play under a manager who is quite young and might be, of a similar generation, if I may, with you?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. You think it would be strange, but the thing with Gem is she's so level-headed. She's got so much knowledge. She's got a huge wealth of knowledge for somebody of her age. She's very mature at times in regards to her coaching, and it never seems that way. It never seems like she's younger than myself or any of the older players. She's just so incredible at what she does, and I'm excited to see where the future takes her, because she's a very exciting coach, manager, whatever you want to call it, and I definitely think she's the right person to be at Aston Villa Women at the moment and take the club forward.
I see, because you said that she's mature as a coach, because we heard that she dressed up as a chicken for your team meetup, so I suppose the maturity stays on pitch, but does she have a different approach compared to perhaps maybe older coaches or more traditional coaches? Is that so? Is it just similar?
I think every coach is unique in their own right. Obviously, being a coach myself, I think it's one of the things you pride yourself on. You don't want to be kind of a copycat, or you don't want to be a mirror image of something that's already out there. But I guess Gem does have a lot of different sides to her, and I think one of the best things about her is that she really understands individuals, and she knows how to get the best out of people. And I think the chicken suit isn't where it ends. Gemma's got a whole kind of range of fancy dress outfits. There's also a lobster in there that we've witnessed recently. So I think, like I said, Gemma knows how to get the best out of people, and she knows when to flip the switch and go from kind of serious to caring, or caring to, back to serious again. And I think that's what makes her great. She knows how to pull people together. She's excellent at what she does in regards to coaching, and her antics off the pitch in regards to her fancy dress, I guess, just help lift the mood when we need it. And I guess they just show that she's human. And I think, like I said, that's the best thing about her.
Yeah, that's an interesting wardrobe to see. But so you basically, I want to move on a bit to the different leagues you've played in, because now of course you're going to play in the WSL, that's a professional league, but you've also played in Championship, which is a non-professional league. What do you think, and of course other leagues as well, but what do you think is the biggest difference between the leagues that you've played in?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, because I think being a professional player is an insane opportunity. And when you've been a semi-pro or, an amateur footballer trying to play against a professional team, it's difficult, especially if you've had a long day at work, or you've worked all week and then you're expected to, go and play against Manchester City or Arsenal or Chelsea at the weekend. But I think over the last few years, that gap's definitely closed a lot. And I know there are teams in the Championship and in, the third tier of women's football that have really kind of pushed professional teams all the way this year, like I said, in the FA Cup, and obviously looking at some of the Continental Cup results as well. I think one of the biggest differences is speed of play, speed of thought process, and fitness. Essentially, when you get to that top level, it's relentless. You cannot switch off. You've got to kind of be involved for 90 plus minutes, not just physically but mentally as well. And those girls that are playing for England or have played internationally or have been playing professionally, you can see that in their game. They're fantastic kind of wizards of their craft, if you like, and like I said, not only can they do it physically, but they can think faster as well, and they do things faster. So yeah, I think speed of play for me is the biggest one, and maybe just personality as well. I think you get a lot of players in the WSL that are big, strong characters. Like they're very aware of themselves. They know how to push themselves. They know how to push other people. And sometimes that can overshadow kind of technical ability, because it kind of drives a team forward. It drives other individuals forward as well.
Now, because one of the things that we noticed about, different leagues, and of course you play in Yeovil Town, is that in the leagues below, some of the times there could be financial troubles, especially given now. Because unfortunately, a few years ago, we know that Yeovil Town, suffered their own financial problems themselves. They got points deducted and then they were ultimately relegated, which was very unfortunate. But, how does it affect you as a player, to see all that's happening at the club at that time?
Yeah, I think with Yeovil, it's an interesting story because that club came out of nowhere. And the reason it came out of nowhere was that there was lots of good people behind the scenes that, put in a hell of a shift to get the bid into the FA, to get them into the WSL2. And I was lucky enough to join them when they first got into what was back then the WSL2. And do you know what? We had a great manager and, like I said, some great people behind the scenes that really worked hard to get that club up and running. I think the difficulty was, as we've already kind of alluded to, that without sounding disrespectful, Yeovil Town men, maybe, they're not a Premier League team. So essentially there wasn't a huge budget to go, yeah, we really want to support you guys, here you go. I mean, the club were great. They let us play at Hewish Park and, we shared the same kit, etc. So they were great in that sense. But unfortunately, at times and in this day and age, finance does come into it. And I think there were lots of excellent people at Yeovil that tried to make the club self-sustainable and tried to get in big sponsorship and things like that. And at times as a player, it was frustrating that I remember playing in the spring series and we'd occasionally get, we didn't win. Well, I think we got 1 point in that spring series, but people would kind of put us down on the women's football show and say negative things about us. And essentially we were all very aware that we weren't at the same standard as an Arsenal or a Manchester City because we weren't professional players. I know for me, I was working in a primary school as a teaching assistant Monday to Friday and then travelling a 4-hour round trip to get to training twice a week. And, we're playing against players that are training all day, every day. So I think that was the most frustrating thing, was that people didn't understand that, yes, Yeovil Town was a WSL club, but it didn't have the same backing that other clubs had. It didn't have the same provision. And do you know what? That was a great group of girls who really fought, and gave everything they could on the pitch, and likewise the staff that were then in charge as well. So it was a real shame to see kind of how that happened. But it's the same with Donny Bells. They've always been, one of the flagship clubs in women's football, and it's a shame to see that. You've got Fulham as well, who 20 years ago were one of the best teams in the country in women's football. So yeah, I think it's a real shame, and I really hope that in 5-10 years time there's things in place that allow clubs that are currently in tier 3 and 4, so someone like Sunderland, for example, who I'm sure will be back in the Championship very soon, will allow them to be financially stable and not allow things like that to happen that have happened to Doncaster and to Yeovil.
If you look back to when you were, like, say, 18-year-old, when you were first starting or about to start to play, what advice would you have given yourself?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's quite a few things, to be honest. I'd have to say I wasn't the most psychologically tough player when I was younger. And I think I took setbacks a little bit harder than I should have done. I should have seen them as an opportunity to grow and develop and work harder. And the more I look back, that's probably one of my, not regrets, but one of the things I wish I'd done sooner. So I think for any young player, it's about, one, working hard and being prepared to have setbacks and work through them. But also communication. I think one of the things I lacked as an 18-year-old was the ability to say to my coach, look, I'm not playing, that's fine, but what do I need to do to get better? And I think any good coach will be transparent and honest with players and tell them what they need to do. So, yeah, I guess they would be my two. Work hard, and also make sure you communicate with those around you and ask questions.
I see. Now, before that, every single time we have some quick fire questions for our guests. We have some for you here as well. They spin off from one of those famous, interview questions they like to ask sometimes on late night. That is, if you can invite any football player, that's what we changed, dead or alive, to your house for lunch, will you make them banana bread?
So you're not asking me who it would be, you're just asking me if I'd.
But you can also say who it would be if you want to. Yeah.
Okay, and it'd have to be a player.
Well, it could be a coach, anyone in the football industry for that matter, maybe.
Okay, so I'd love to sit down with Alex Ferguson. I studied him in my master's degree, and I think he's fascinating as a coach. So I'd love to sit down with Fergie and have a chat with him. And playing wise, my hero, maybe shouldn't admit this, but I'm a big Leeds fan, so my hero was always Lucas Radebe. And I loved him because not only was he a very good player, he was also a very good person. And I'd love to chat kind of more to him about his influences and kind of what he's up to now. Would I make them banana bread? I'm going to say no, because the second time I tried to make it during lockdown, it was an absolute disaster. I wouldn't have even used it as a doorstop, let alone to feed to people that were coming to my house.
We want to know if you have any pre-match rituals that you think it might be a bit weird or something you just do before a game.
Yeah, so I don't have many, but I do have one that's a little bit weird. I like to be the last person out of the changing room. So if I'm starting in a game, like for some reason, I couldn't even tell you why, I just like to be the last one out of the changing room. I think it's because I don't want to be in the pictures in the tunnel. So I like to just hang at the back and essentially get my head together and just kind of, fade onto the pitch and get going with the game. It's weird because I don't really care. Like, say if I get out of the change room and someone says, "Oh, I have to be the last one out of the tunnel," I'm like, "Yeah, that's fine." But last one out of the change room, that has to be me.
I see. All right. Okay. Let's say after the interview, right? If you for any reason find a lottery ticket and wins £100 million, how would you spend it?
Again, it's a great question. I was thinking about this for a long time. Well, I've just bought a house, so I'd probably pay off my mortgage. I'd probably go on holiday because obviously thanks to COVID, I was supposed to be going to Dubai a few weeks ago and jumping out of a plane, and that didn't happen. So yeah, and then I think, with the majority, it would be nice to see that invested in girls football in this country, I think, and particularly in maybe areas where there isn't much provision. So I've actually just moved from Gloucestershire, which is a county that has some absolutely brilliant girls football teams, but there's not a lot of investment or exposure to kind of women's teams. And I think it would be great to see more women's teams cropping up over the country that are competing to play at that highest level. So yeah, just investing it back in the game, to be honest, and especially for young girls coming through so that they have an opportunity to kind of do things that maybe I didn't as a kid, which I'm now having the opportunity to do. But, I'd like to think that in a few years' time, 6, 7, 8, 9-year-olds will have really good academy programs to go and play in, which, again, there are some, and they are getting, more widespread across the country. But yeah, just grassroots football, and to those that need it most, I guess.
You said that when you go to Dubai, you want to jump off the plane. Do you mean literally? Is there a skydiving thing? Because that's just what I heard, and I was just wondering.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't make that very clear, did I? So no, I love. I've got a weird obsession with flying. I've flown a plane before. I've flown a helicopter before. And I was bought a skydive as a birthday present this year. So yeah, I was set to jump out of a plane, doing a skydive over the palm in Dubai.
Because I was you're going to Dubai. I was just wondering, you mean getting off the plane, or do you mean skydiving? That's okay. That's cool. Because yeah, that's basically all our questions. But we just want to end with one segment which we name The Voices, which is a segment, I'm not sure whether you've heard it before, where we ask whoever comes on, our guest, to just say anything they want to different young girls and boys who, of course, you just mentioned them, who are facing challenges, especially, of course, during the lockdown and all that, when chasing their dreams. So we just want to ask you to say anything you want to, those younger kids who might want to become a football player like you.
Never let anything stand in your way. Always overcome obstacles. So always find a way to go through them, round them, over them, whatever it takes. Just don't go backwards from them. Work hard. It sounds so kind of, cheesy or whatever, and I know a lot of people say it, but essentially if you work hard at the things you need to work hard on and you ask what those things are, then essentially you're only ever going to improve. Research, think about how you can get better, always want to be a better version of yourself, and I guess never ever stand still. So always keep moving forward, even if it's sideways a little bit, always keep moving, always keep progressing.
Thank you for the message, and thank you for joining us on the show. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Thanks, Harry.
Thanks a lot.
Here's what else you need to know this week. Arsenal have signed Australian goalkeeper Lydia Williams. The 32-year-old, who has joined the Gunners from Melbourne City, has won 88 caps for her country. Liverpool women have signed former Reading goalkeeper Rachel Laws on an undisclosed length deal. The 29-year-old was a free agent after leaving the Royals last month, where she had spent 2 years there. Everton women have signed England under-21 international Poppy Pattinson following her exit from fellow WSL club Bristol City. And Sheffield United women part company with manager Carla Ward. Ward guided the team to second in Women's Championship before the season was curtailed. Sheffield United chief executive Bettis said that, quote, both parties have opted to go down a different path. That's it for our show this week. If you liked the podcast, remember to rate, subscribe, and share it with your friends and family. We'll be back next week. Thank you again for listening. I'm Harry Chan, and this is the She Plays On Women's Football Podcast.